Welcome back, everyone, to Behind the Arc Basketball. Last season, the American had an unpredictable season, which resulted in a three-way tie for the conference regular season title between Houston, Cincinnati, and Tulsa, all tied for first in the conference at 13-5. While Memphis finished fifth in the conference after having high expectations heading into last season with the number one recruit James Wiseman. However, Wiseman only played 3 games before stepping away from Memphis. At the end of last season, the American could have possibly had 3, maybe 4, or maybe as much as 5 bids that could have gone to the NCAA tournament with Houston, Wichita State, Cincinnati, Memphis, and Tulsa all competing for spots in the tournament, while UConn tried to make a late season run, winning their last 5 games in a row as a farewell and goodbye from the conference. This season, the American will downsize from 12 to 11 teams as UConn will now move to the Big East. In this video, I'm going to give a rundown of my American Athletic Conference college basketball rankings for the 2020-21 college basketball season. We're going to start off here number 11 for my prediction. The team that I finished last for this season I predict would happen to be the Tulane Green Wave. Last season, Tulane happened to have an improvement in year number 1 under head coach Ron Hunter. Tulane went winless back in 2018-19 with a 0-18 record in the conference, but they improved to 4-14 last season. This season, I feel like it's going to be really difficult here for Tulane to keep on improving, considering the amount of losses the Green Wave suffered in the offseason. Tulane lost their top 3 scorers from the program and will be without 4 of their 5 starters. The loss that hurts them the most happens to be the off-season departure of leading scorer Tayshawn Hightower, who averaged 15.9 points per game last season. Hightower had 1 season of eligibility left for Tulane, but he happened to be dismissed from the team back in April after he was charged with a fatal murder. Leading rebounder Christian Thompson, who averaged over 14 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game last season, and KJ Lawson, who averaged over 13 points per game, both graduated from the program. Starter Kevin Zhang also left Tulane to play professionally in his native country of China. What's returning for Tulane this season isn't really much experience, as Hunter will bring back Tulane's number 4 scorer with junior guard Jordan Walker, who averaged 8 points per game. Back for Tulane also will be a guard, Ray Ona Embo, who played 6 games last season due to injury. He averaged over 10 points per game during the 2018-19 season. Looking to take a big step up inside as a rebounder is a sophomore forward, Noble Days, who started 12 games as a freshman, as he's going to have to make some big improvements in year 2. He averaged 2.9 points per game last season and 3.6 rebounds per game, as Tulane is going to be left without a veteran presence this inside for this season. Hunter was able to acquire 3 transfers in the offseason. All three of these transfers got waivers. The newcomer to keep an eye on is junior point guard Gabe Watson out of Southern Miss. He averaged 13 points per game last season for Southern Miss. Tulane also getting a sophomore guard with Jalen Forbes from Alabama. He was a top 100 recruit out of high school, but he only averaged 10 minutes per game last season as a freshman under head coach Nate Oates. Tulane also gets some more rebounding help with sophomore 6'8" forward Kevin Cross from Nebraska. He averaged over 7 points per game and just under 4 rebounds per game last season. Of course, the big loss in the offseason for Tulane happens to be Tayshawn Hightower. Just unfortunate that had to happen with him being dismissed from the team in April. And Tulane happened to lose their top 3 rebounders from the team in the offseason with an already depleted rebounding squad that ranked last in the conference and 342nd in college basketball last season with under 31 rebounds per game. Now Tulane is in trouble as they are in desperate need for more players to step up and make an impact inside here for the Green Wave this season. I predict that Tulane will finish last in the American. Now we're going to move on to number 10 here for my American predictions. That's where I got the Temple Owls for the season at number 10. So in his first season, their new head coach Aaron Makita, Owls finished with a down year, 14-17. In the offseason, Temple lost their top 4 of 5 scores, with all 4 of their players departing at the guard position. As the biggest loss in the offseason happened to be leading scorer, 2020 American second team all-conference selection, Quentin Rose, who averaged over 16 points per game last season. Temple also losing their leading rebounder, who went to the NBA draft, 6'4" guard, Nate Pierre-Louis. and he averaged almost 11 points per game and 8.5 rebounds per game last season. Number 3 scorer, Alani Moore, also graduated from the program as well. Also, number 5 scorer, Monty Scott, transferred over to Portland State. As for this season's roster, Temple will bring back its number 4 scorer, with junior forward Jake Forrester. Also coming back will be senior forward J.P. Mormon. He started 26 games as a freshman, 26 games last season for Morin. He averaged just under 6 points per game and over 5 rebounds per game, as I expect Mormon to be in line for a big improving season down low for Temple. An additional senior forward will be back with Devondre Perry. He connected on over 56% of his 2-point shots last season. I predict more out of him this season, as well as sophomore Arashima Parks, who is listed as a forward for Temple. Obviously, Temple has a ton of players here listed as forwards, as they're going to need a lot of backcourt help, as that is what they're lacking here with guards. The Owls will be bringing in a sophomore guard with a transfer with Ty Strickland from Wisconsin, as he sat out last season due to NCAA transfer rules. He averaged only 1.8 points per game as a freshman, however, for the Badgers, as he's, of course, going to need to step up in a big way, as this team's really depleted at the guard position this season for Temple. That's due to the all-season losses of 3 solid guards leaving the program, and now Temple's offensive production is probably going to take a hit for this season, as well as their defense, where their top 3 ball stealers now gone from the program. Temple last season finished in last place in the conference, Temple only finished last place in the conference only once back in 2014, and for this season, I don't think that they're going to finish last, considering how much Tulane lost in the all-season, but I do think that Temple will be lucky that if they are able to reach that 14 win mark this season, if they're going to be lucky if they do so to reach that 14 win mark that they had last season here, as I predict that they're going to have less than 14 wins for this season for Temple. I predict that Temple is going to finish 10th in American for this season. Now we're going to move on to number 9 here for my prediction. That's where it goes out to the UCF Knights, Central Florida. I got in number 9. So last season, UCF had a down season, finishing with a 16-14 record overall without Taco Fall, BJ Taylor, and Aubrey Dawkins, who graduated from the 2019 NCAA tournament team. During the last offseason, Central Florida suffered even more losses when 5 of his top 8 scorers left the program. The biggest loss was Central Florida's leading scorer, number 2 rebounder from last season, 6'11" center Colin Smith, who decided to step away from basketball to focus on his health. Without Smith, the Knights are lacking that leadership presence that they have on the roster, and Smith was the only player on the roster last season to start all 30 games, and he averaged 12.6 points per game and 6.3 rebounds per game last season for the Knights. Other players that left the program in the offseason include number 3 scorer guard Cesar DeJesus, who decided to turn pro. Guards Dejon Ingram, Matt Milan, and Frank Burtz all graduated from the program. This season, UCF will bring back 3 guards that didn't receive much starter minutes last season, but they did average anywhere between 19 to 24 minutes per game last season. The key player that the Knights will return is their sophomore guard with Darren Green Jr., who had a great freshman season. He averaged over 10 points per game as a freshman, while converting on over 41% of his 3-point shots. Also returning back for Central Florida will be senior guard Brandon Mahan, who averaged 7.5 points per game last season. Sophomore guard Dre Fuller Jr. He'll be back. He averaged over 6 points per game. Head coach Johnny Dawkins, able to bring in 2 transfers here, should be able to come in and start right off the bat for UCF. The first transfer, senior guard Darius Perry from Louisville. He averaged a career 4.8 points per game for the Cardinals in his 3 seasons, but was never able to break out at Louisville. The second transfer, able to give him some inside help, will be 6'8" Sean Mobley from VCU. He's going to have to take major improvements to step up down inside the post and be a much, indeed, improved rebounder. As Mobley was only able to average 4.2 points per game and 2.5 rebounds per game last season, while starting 23 games for the VCU Rams. UCF saw its top 2 rebounders leave the team in the offseason, Colin Smith and Dejon Ingram departing. I expect 6'11" sophomore center Tony Johnson Jr. to be in the mix as well, to have an increased role for the Knights this season in year number 2. UCF was ranked 11th last season in rebounding in the conference, and another season here, multiple guards on the roster, not enough big men once again, as they are thin inside for UCF, as the Knights are going to have players to step up on the boards this season. I predict UCF will finish 9th in the American. And now we're going to move on here to number 8 for my American predictions. as I predict East Carolina moving up in the conference here to number 8 for this season. So after 3 straight seasons of second to last place finishes in the conference, I expect things to be brighter this season for ECU. The Pirates will return their entire starting lineup, and basically their entire roster for this season will be back. Two of those starters were freshmen last season. They should keep on improving when their number 2 and number 3 scores. Tristan Newton and Brandon Suggs. Newton could possibly be a breakout candidate this season if he can keep on improving. He averaged 17.6 points per game last season during his final 5 games. However, the main impact player that everybody should take note for the Pirates should be able to make sure that they boost up a couple spots here in the conference this season. Happens to be their star, junior forward Jaden Gardner. Gardner was an all-conference second-team selection last season. He led the American in points scored per game as he averaged 19.7 points per game last season, and he also tallied 9.2 rebounds per game. Watch out, of course, for Jaden Gardner to carry the Pirates this season. Wouldn't be shocked if he is one of the top 10 scorers in all college basketball this season. The Pirates will return 2 more starting guards into the mix with J.J. Miles and Tremont Robinson-White. Seniors Tyree Jackson and Batuma Baruti, who both averaged over 20 minutes per game last season off the bench, will be back as well. The Pirates just going to need to improve defensively for the season to make more of an impact and to dig out of that hole of being at the bottom of the conference. East Carolina last season averaged over 72 points per game to their opponents. They're going to have to tighten up defensively, of course, with the entire starting lineup back. I expect Gardner to carry and lead ECU this season for the Pirates and keep this team improving. I predict East Carolina will finish 8th in the American. Now at number 7 here for my prediction for an American for this season, that's where I get the Wichita State Shockers, as no team suffered more impact losses than Wichita State in the offseason. Now, at the time of recording this video, it was reported by Jeff Goodman of Stadium that the Shockers are reportedly parting ways with head coach Greg Marshall with less than 2 weeks before the start of the season. That is a big oof. Ouch. Messy timing, as Marshall was under investigation for allegations of physical and verbal abuse against his former players. That explains why there were so many players here that transferred this offseason for Wichita State. Marshall had a resume of 14 total NCAA tournament appearances. 7 of those were at Wichita State, along with the 2013-14 season, in which the Shockers posted a record of 35-1 overall, and Marshall also took the Shockers to the 2013 Final Four. Wichita State has had 6 players leave the program to transfer alone this spring. Leaving the program were the top 3 scorers from last season. Guard Eric Stevenson transferred out to Washington. Guard Jamaris Burton, he went over to Texas Tech. Unfortunate blow of transfers going out the door. Also lost a graduating departure. Leading rebounder 6'11" forward Jamie Echenike graduated. Guard Grant Sherfield transferred to Nevada. He had a solid freshman season, averaging over 8 points per game. 2 other freshmen from last season's roster as well that could have had increased playing time this season ended up transferring, with guard Noah Fernandez transferring back to his native home state in the Bay State to play for his home state team at UMass. And for D. Anthony Gordon, he decided to transfer out to Northwest Mississippi Community College. To make depth matters worse, 7-foot center Asborn Midgard, he transferred and went to Grand Canyon University. However, the good news in this rough offseason for Wichita State, able to pick up a transfer with a top 35 recruit in the class of 2016 without Tariq Gilbert, transfer from UConn to Wichita State, but Gilbert has had bad luck due to injuries the past couple of seasons, as he also saw his playing time decrease and as well as his scoring numbers decrease last season for the Huskies. He averaged only 8.5 points per game last season compared to the 2018-19 season where he averaged 12.6 points per game. Returning for the Shockers this season will be their number 4-5 scorers with guards Tyson Etienne and Dexter Dennis. The Shockers also going to bring back their number 7 and 8 scorers, senior guard Trey Wade, junior 6'8" center Morris Udezi. Udezi is in line to have a huge increase in playing time this season for the Shockers. He only averaged 10.5 minutes per game last season. He converted on over 61% of his shots from the floor, though, so that is a promising stat there for Udezi. That is production that he will need to keep up, along with stepping up on the boards for this season here for Udezi. He's going to have to prove himself this season, as the Shockers lost their 2 bigs in the offseason. 6'11" Echenike, 7-footer Ashbourne Midgard leaving the program just with so many departures in the offseason. I feel like it's going to take a miracle for Wichita State to have a season similar to last year where they were in and out of the top 25 at times. Maybe the Shockers will shock me and prove otherwise, but they're going to have to do it without their head coach Greg Marshall this season. Terrible timing for this firing. I predict that Wichita State will finish 7th in the American this season. Now we're going to move on to number 6 here in the American for this season. That's where I predict the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. This team was low-key pretty good last season for Tulsa. They started out conference play at 7-1, which included top 25 victories against Memphis and Wichita State. By the way, that win against Memphis was by 40 points. 80-40 they won that. Tulsa lost their top 2 forwards from last season. Their leading scorer, Martins Abagnu. He graduated from the program. Number 3 scorer, Jariah Horn, also transferred out to Colorado. And number 6 scorer, Lawson Carita, also graduated from the program for Tulsa. For this season, Tulsa's scoring, I predict, is going to be based off of these 3 main players, all seniors. First impact player to watch out for, a guard, Brandon Rashel, the number 2 scorer from last season, leading rebounder for the Golden Hurricane. He averaged over 12 points per game, 5.8 rebounds per game last season. 2 other seniors who both averaged 7 points per game last season are back. Starting guards, Darian Jackson, Elijah Joyner. I predict Tulsa's defense here to lead the team this season, as the Golden Hurricane was ranked 30th in college basketball in points allowed last season. They should be a scrappy team once again, as Rachel and Jackson both averaged 1.5 steals per game last season. Head coach Frank Haith, he's going to add in a transfer guard here, junior Curtis Hayward, a second. He happened to sit out last season due to NCAA transfer rules, but Hayward, another scrappy defender who averaged over 1 steal per game back at Georgia Tech in 2018-19, while starting 19 games and averaging over 5 points per game for the Yellow Jackets. The Golden Hurricane's going to need some desperate help inside the low post for the season. The player that's going to have to need to step up and improve will be their 7-footer center, Emmanuel Agbo, who started 15 games last season, but only averaged about 8 minutes per game while tallying 1.7 rebounds per game. Of course, Agbo is going to have to really improve there on the boards, as he's going to have to replace that inside production of leading scorer Martins Abagnu, who shot over 56% from the floor last season. Tulsa is plenty of guards in their roster here that can make an impact, but they look thin inside as well. I predict that Tulsa is going to finish 6th in the American in this season. Now at number 5 here for the American is the first group of teams from 11 to 6. Those teams I all predict will miss the NCAA tournament. Now at number 5, I predict South Florida here will go at number 5 for this season. And I predict that South Florida will be the first team on the bubble in the American. So I predict that South Florida is going to be a bubble team this season, but I predict that they're going to be on the wrong side of the bubble and just miss the NCAA tournament. In their 7 seasons in the American, South Florida has never finished above 500 in the conference. This season, I think they get a great opportunity to capitalize on that and make some noise in the conference. Getting to the NCAA tournament would be an incredible accomplishment here for USF with a loaded upperclassmen squad. The Bulls are coming off a 14-17 record last season, in which they finished 9th in the conference. South Florida should keep on trending upwards in the right direction this season. The reason for improvement is due to the majority of last season's roster returning for head coach Brian Gregory, as he only lost 1 starter, which happened to be their number 2 scoring point guard, LaQuincy Rito, who graduated from the program. The Bulls will bring back 5 players who averaged anywhere from 24 to 32 minutes last season per game. Heading back to South Florida will be their leading scorer, senior guard David Collins. He averaged 13.7 points per game last season. Number 3 scorer, senior guard Justin Brown. He's going to be back as well. He averaged over 9 points per game last season. Junior 7'4" leading rebounder Michael Durr. He averaged over 6 rebounds per game last season. He is back. Also returning, junior guard Zach Dawson and Xavier Castaneda. South Florida's reason for a big-time improvement, though, is because of the re-arrival and revival, possibly, of 6'8" sophomore forward Alexis Yetna. That's the player to have the name right there for South Florida, the one to pay attention to for the season. Yetna was named to the 2019 American Athletic Conference Rookie of the Year. He averaged 12.3 points per game back in the 2018-19 season and 9.6 rebounds per game during his freshman season. However, he missed all last season due to injury. If Yetna can return back to his old form he had freshman season, USF's going to be a dangerous team this season. Helping to boost out the Bulls' depth as well. Off the bench will be a 4-star freshman guard. With Caleb Murphy, Yetna, though, has the chance to have a monster season if he can stay healthy. Everybody here on the roster can keep on improving. Possibly South Florida could be right into this bubble pictures. They could be one of the biggest surprises in all of college basketball if everybody takes some big-time steps up this season for USF. And the Bulls here have only made the NCAA tournament 3 times in program history. I think that they're going to come up just short this season, and I predict that they're going to grab their first NIT bid in a decade for South Florida. I've got the Bulls finishing 5th in the American this season. Now we're going to move on to number 4. Another team I predict here that will be on the bubble for this season. I predict that they're going to be on the wrong side of the NCAA tournament and just miss out on the tournament. Happens to be the Cincinnati Bearcats. Under their first season of head coach John Brandon at Cincinnati, they finished with a 20-10 record last season. In the offseason, Cincinnati lost a ton, though. 6 seniors to graduation. 2 of those players were starters. The 2 biggest names lost to graduation: point guard, leading scorer Jaron Cumberland, who was an all-conference first-team selection last season in the American. He averaged 15.5 points per game, 4.9 assists per game. Second starter, graduated from the program, the Bearcats' leading rebounder, double-double machine, 6'8" forward, Trey Scott. He averaged a double-double of 11.4 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game. Off the bench, Brandon also lost bench player Javen Cumberland, the cousin of Jaron Cumberland, as Javen was the 6th man last season for Cincinnati, averaging just under 9 minutes per game and 22 minutes per game averaged. And then as for this season's roster, what Cincinnati will return is 3 starters with guards Keith Williams, Micah Adams-Woods, and 7'1" center Chris Vogt. As Keith Williams, a guard for Cincinnati, withdrew from the NBA draft to come back for the Bearcats for his senior season. He was second on the team in scoring last season, averaging 12.6 points per game. Micah Adams-Woods, another guard, started 19 games last season. He averaged 5 points per game as a freshman. In line for a much improved season, rebounding should be 7'1" center Chris Vogt, as he withdrew from the NBA draft, as he averaged 11 points per game and 5.9 rebounds per game. I expect him to have a massive season on the boards this year for Cincinnati. As far as they lost Trey Scott, their leading rebounder, so Vogt should be able to step up big time and replace Scott's production. The other 2 starting lineup spots here, I predict, for Cincinnati this season will be filled by transfers coming in. As another low post rebounding factor added to the program will be grad transfer forward Rapulus Ivanauskis from Colgate, who played his last 2 seasons for the Colgate Raiders in the Patriot League. He averaged a career 13.9 points per game, 7.4 rebounds per game during his 3 seasons. The second eligible transfer, junior guard from Michigan, David DeJulius, who played off the bench in his 2 seasons for the Wolverines. So these are the 2 big pickups here that Brandon able to land in the offseason. Cincinnati's just going to need players here to step up and replace those 2 massive offseason losses to graduation with Jaron Cumberland and leading rebounder Trey Scott. Watch out, though, for the jump this season by Keith Williams, for him to keep on improving. Williams scored a career-high 30 points against South Florida last March. Cincinnati will need Williams to carry this team to put them into the NCAA tournament conversation. I predict that Cincinnati will be on the bubble conversation, but just missed the NCAA tournament. I've got the Bearcats 4th in the American. Now we're going to move on to number 3 here in the American for this season, for my prediction. That happens to be the SMU Mustangs. I predict that SMU is going to be a bubble team, and I predict that they're going to be a 50-50 team here to have a chance for the tournament. I predict that they're going to have a 50-50 shot for the tournament, and I predict that they're going to be one of the top 50 teams in all college basketball this season. As I think SMU, they're going to be the last team in the tournament, I predict, or the first team out. That's how I see it with SMU this season. The last 3 seasons for the Mustangs for SMU have been down compared to their previous 4 seasons before that, from 2013 to 2017. The Mustangs, though, this season, they have an opportunity to be back to that tournament level if everything does happen to come together. SMU will have one of the most experienced rosters in all college basketball. They're going to have 3 seniors and 7 juniors on their roster. Head coach Tim Jankovic, he's going to bring back 5 of his top 6 scorers from last season. All 5 players returning started at least 14 games and averaged over 20 minutes per game. The only major loss in the offseason happened to be number 3 scorer, number 2 rebounder, Isaiah Mike, who went to the NBA draft. Mike averaged averaged 14 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game last season. In the offseason, Jankovic able to fill the departure of Mike, able to bring in a solid transfer here. 6'10" junior forward transfer, Yor-Anei. However, at this time, he's still waiting for that waiver at the moment. He averaged 8.1 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game last season for Oklahoma State, while Anei finished 4th in the Big 12 with just under 2 blocks per game. The second transfer that should be able to come in, help out SMU in the starting lineup, junior guard Darius McNeil from California. McNeil will be eligible this season as he started 58 games during his 2 seasons at Cal. He averaged over 11 points per game. As for the impact players returning, Jankovic going to bring back his top 2 scorers from last season with guards Tyson Jolly and Kendrick Davis. Both Jolly and Davis were selected to the All-Conference 3rd team last season. They both averaged over 14 points per game last season for SMU, while Davis finished 10th nationally last season with 6.7 assists per game. Joining Jolly and Davis in the starting 5 will be forward SMU's leading rebounder, Ferron Hunt. He is back. He averaged 11 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game last season. Those are the definite 3 starters coming back. Jolly, Davis, and Hunt. Cal transfer McNeil, he should be into the mix as well in the starting lineup for the season. And if Yor-Anei were to be able to be granted that waiver, right now he's still yet to receive a waiver to play this season, I predict that he will be able to fill in the final spot here into the starting 5. However, as of now, SMU is going to have that 1 spot to fill, which I predict is going to come down to either senior forward Ethan Chargo or junior forward Emmanuel Bandomel, as both of these players averaged anywhere between 21 to 23 minutes per game last season, along with averaging around 6 to 7 points per game. The Mustangs are going to have a lot of experience here on their roster, upperclassmen, as they appear to be deep with a good 6th option off the bench. Jankovic last took SMU to the tournament in 2017 with a record of 30-5. While I do not expect SMU to be that good this season compared to what they were during that 2016-17 season at 30-5, I project that SMU could possibly sneak into the NCAA tournament. I've got them as a 50-50 shot here. They're able to find their way there. I predict the Mustangs will finish at 3rd in the American. And now we're down to 2 here. As at number 2, I predict the Memphis Tigers and the American for this season. And number 2 and number 1, both of these teams I predict are NCAA tournament locks. I predict that the American will have 2 NCAA tournament locks this season that go to the tournament. So here's Memphis at number 2. Head coach Penny Hardaway lost his top star player from last season, but the main bulk of last season's roster will stay intact. And also, they're going to get some great additions with a couple of big off-season pickups. So in the offseason, Memphis, with what they lost, the 2020 American Player of the Year, leading scorer, leading rebounder, Precious Achiuwa, obviously the biggest, massive loss for Memphis, as Achiuwa was just massive last season. He was huge, carrying Memphis all season long. The Tigers also losing bench player and guard Tyler Harris in the offseason. He transferred over to Iowa State. But what Penny Hardaway will have this season, a crowded roster with talented sophomores on the squad looking to make an impact and improve. As for this season's roster, the Tigers will bring back 5 players who averaged anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes per game last season with guards Lester Quinones, Boogie Ellis, and Alex Lomax, and also Damian Bowe, and also forward DJ Jeffries, as these players will be back. And the reason why Memphis should be an NCAA tournament team is because of what Penny Hardaway was able to get here in the offseason. 2 tremendous offseason pickups, able to boost the Tigers here significantly and able to land them right into the top 35 for my prediction for this season. The first one, great pickup here, sophomore guard from Virginia Tech, Landers Nolly II, who led the Hokies last season as a freshman, averaging 15.5 points per game and 5.8 rebounds per game. The second big pickup happens to be a 5-star recruit at center, 6'11" big man, Musa Cisse, as Memphis will once again have a ton of talent that they bring to the roster this season, as this season is whether Penny Hardaway, can he put the pieces together? That's the main question here, as the Tigers on their roster this season will have 6 players that were top 100 recruits out of high school at some point. I believe that Memphis will be able to put the pieces together to be an NCAA tournament team, and I got Memphis finishing 2nd in the American. And now we're down to 1 here. The team that I predict that will win the American this season goes out to the Houston Cougars. I predict that Houston will be an NCAA tournament team, and they're going to be a borderline top 25 team this season. Under head coach Kelvin Sampson, Houston has been dominant, winning more than 20 games in each of their last 5 seasons, as the Cougars will look to go small ball this season with the loss of their top 3 rebounders. Sampson lost leading rebounder Nate Hinton, who averaged over 10 points per game and over 8 rebounds per game last season. The Cougars also losing the graduation. 6'10" center Chris Harris. He started 20 games last season. Third player Houston will miss, as this was just an unfortunate loss here, as it happened to be number 2 scorer and rebounder Fabian White Jr. He's going to miss this entire season due to an ACL injury, as missing White here, just a massive losses. He could have been in prime position to make an even bigger impact on the boards this season for the Cougars. As for returning players this season for Houston, this is what they're going to get back here. Still have leading scorer, sophomore guard Caleb Mills. He got hot late last season, as he's going to be back. He averaged over 13 points per game as a freshman, as he has the chance to have a breakout season along with this player possible. Another breakout candidate, Quentin Grimes, junior guard, former Kansas Jayhawk, as he has a great opportunity here to have a massive improving season here for Quentin Grimes. Keep on growing, as he was second on the team in scoring last season for Houston, averaging over 12 points per game. Senior guard Dejon Jarreau, he'll be back after withdrawing from the NBA draft. Coming off a decent freshman season, will be back as well. Will be sophomore for a sophomore guard coming off a decent season for Marcus Sasser. He should be back as well. Keep on improving for Houston to keep his perimeter fully stocked here and loaded. Sampson able to bring in a transfer from Idaho, Cameron Tyson, who shot over 42% from three-point range 2 seasons ago at Idaho, as the Cougars going to need some players here to step up on the boards, as this team is a smaller type of team for this season, as they are in desperate need of rebounders. Senior 6'8" Brisson Gresham, he could be in line for an increase in minutes this season to help out the Cougars down low. I predict Houston is going to lead the American in three-point shooting for this season here, as their perimeter looks really solid for this season, and I predict that Houston will come out on top, and I got them at number 1 this season to win the American. So that's a wrap here to this video. My American Athletic Conference rankings for the 2020-21 college basketball season. Make sure to like, share, comment, subscribe to my channel. Also, ring the notification bell down below so you can be notified about future live content here from my play-by-play live streams as well when they start up. Feel free to check out my college basketball preseason top 25 video as well, and also all the other great content I have going on Behind the Arc Basketball. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, as this is Behind the Arc Basketball.